every Sunday. I know you've got a podcast too. I want to get into that later
Okay.
on as well. But we drop our episodes every single Sunday. And this podcast is all about how to get on stages and how to use stages to grow your business. And Paris has been working with us for a while and doing that, the front end and the back end of it. So that's what we're here to do today is really talk about Paris and what he's doing to share his business. And this is really another stage.
Yeah,
Every podcast is a stage. So now we're on stage.
I've
Great.
learned that from you. I thought being on stage was physical stages,
A
but
lot of people do.
yeah, I have with my YouTube channel and my other podcast, which is a separate business from the one we're going to focus on today. But I didn't realize that was an actual stage until you mentioned that, and I like, you know what, that makes sense.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Okay, so this main camera is recording, right, babe? Beautiful. Okay, so when you first started getting into this, I want to talk about your business, but I want to talk about the backstory behind your business. One of the most fascinating stories that you tell from stage is this, ironically, the wedding ring story. I
Uh-huh.
forgot to put mine on today, so Richard's gonna do another proposal here in a minute. Make sure I put one on. But this wedding ring story, a lot of people when they get up on stage, they're
Mhm.
like, okay, they judge their story. Either they judge their story to be too traumatic so that they're afraid it will trigger people
Mhm.
and they don't tell it because they're like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know if I can be that vulnerable." Or they judge their story to be too mundane
Yeah.
and they're like, "I don't wanna." I mean,
I
who's
want to
who's
bore.
motivated by
Yeah.
that? It's boring or whatever. But what's crazy about both of these is they're both wrong because the dramatic story like Jeff Griffin. Did you hear him speak?
I probably, but I don't
He's
remember.
he's the guy in a wheelchair who plays, Olympic basketball.
Oh, nice.
And he became paralyzed down after he fell off a ladder. And he's traveling all over the world. He's been on huge, huge stages. Mind Valley's had him on stage, and his story is very it's trauma. There's a physical trauma in there,
Sure.
right? Fell off a ladder, paralyzed from the waist down. And that story motivates people because my problems aren't as big. And if he solved that problem, I can solve my little ones.
Yeah.
Your story is an everyday story that I think reaches, I don't know if I can judge it to be a wider or a narrower audience, but it's more relatable every day because we all deal with this level of judgment of mundane every single day. So I want you to be the one to tell the story of this whole wedding ring thing and saving up for it because I want everyone to hear it from your mouth. And it was this kind of the origin story of why you started this whole business to begin with?
Actually, no. I was this actually happened about several years into my business.
Really?
Yeah, interestingly enough, but it kind of gave me some
Mm.
clarity on how I should manage my clients and help my clients. My OG
The wedding ring
OG.
story. Here it is. Da, 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 da.
That's yours. Yeah,
That's
that's
mine.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
gorgeous.
thank you.
I would have had to save up a lot more to be able to get one like that.
We saved up some pennies for this one.
That's nice. So yeah, my OG story is even further beyond that, and then actually have a couple of really deep and profound other stories that I haven't yet learned how to share in a way that like you talked to us about having the steps down and the steps back out of it. So
Are you gonna I mean, hot seat call today, you gonna be there? Oh, you had to move an appointment.
yeah, I did. So
Oh,
we'll
next
see.
hot seat call.
We'll see. But the wedding ring story is kind of fun because it was I had a wedding ring that I loved that I bought my wife got me for our actual wedding, and it was a gorgeous ring. I loved it. But I lost it, and I was frustrated because I work out, and I don't know a lot of people who work out who have keep their wedding ring on while they're working out
I don't put
because
this one on.
yeah, it's really it can crunch your finger,
Can damage the
it can damage the
ring.
ring,
Yeah, yeah.
etc. And so I was actually in working towards some bodybuilding shows. I actually was in a show, and it
I
was
did
kind of
not know
fun.
that about you.
Yeah,
You did
so
a bodybuilding
I
show?
did. I was the first year they did men's physique. I was involved in that. I got on stage, and it was kind of fun. I
The what?
got a little
Richard, did
medical.
you know this? Have you been holding out on me?
Yeah, I believe we've talked about it.
So I did a men's men's physique show.
Now I
So
have
I
to see
was
pictures.
well, I was pretty serious about it, and so I'm not a big guy, so I'm not like so men's physique was more appropriate for my physique actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, anyways, the point is that I had come to the I wanted to get a wedding ring, a new one, because I'd lost my old one, and I thought, and I was in sales. I've been self-employed since 2001, and I want to say this was probably 2000 or seven. It was before the downturn in '08
Yeah.
because that's a whole nother story of that I have that I'm working on. But this was a situation where I knew exactly how much money I found a ring, and I knew how much it was, and I was excited because I knew that I knew how many sales I had to make every month, in my business in order to pay the bills. And so I said, look, if I need to make extra money, I need to make extra sales. And I did the numbers, so many sales equals so many appointments equals so many phone calls equals so many people that I have to contact. So I just ran the numbers and I
Mm.
realized if I have these numbers and I work the numbers, I should hit my goal. Well, that month I did. I hit the goal that I had to pay all my bills plus the extra. It was about $600 ring that I wanted to buy.
What was the ring? Was it like a tungsten
It
carbide?
was a I think it had some bling in it actually, and so it
Mm.
was really
This is not a
nice.
gym ring.
Yeah, it was not a ring to wear to the gym, that's for sure, but it was a $600 men's wedding ring, which is not that, it was, I don't know, 20 years ago, so it's still, inflation might be
Well, I
might
don't
be
know. I
twice as much
mean,
by now, but
I paid
anyways.
about that much for Richard ring. It was a custom one.
Oh, yeah, so it was nice, and I was excited because at the end of the month, I thought, "I did it. I hit my goal. I made the contacts. I made the extra sales. I spent the extra time outside of my family to be able to make the goal to make the money to be able to buy this ring." And when I sat down to pay all my bills, I thought there should be that extra money there to be able to then go purchase the ring, and it wasn't. Money was gone, and it
Mm.
was not there, and I was like, "Wait a minute. I knew I did everything I was supposed to do." So I kinda did my own personal inventory, and then I was like, okay, let me ask my wife, hey, did any unexpected costs come up? Did any unexpected expenses come
Yeah,
up?
lawnmower break or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like anything happened? And she said, no, I didn't. I mean, I bought a few things, but it was only a few dollars here and there.
That phrase right there.
Right? How many of us have like,
Oh
oh, it
my
was only
gosh.
$10 or $20,
Oh,
here and
we do it
there.
with money, we do it with calories, we do it with,
Yeah.
it's just here and there. It's a bite here and there.
Yeah, it's only $10, it's only $20, so we think we can spend it. Well, I said, let me just add up all of these here and there's, tens and twenties, and it was $900
Wow.
here and there in tens and twenties. And it was a wake up call for both my wife and I think that it's important as a married couple to have conversations around money that are productive. And so I could, of course, gotten angry, I gotten upset, you blah blah blah, all this stuff, and I was upset. But at the same time, it was an eye opening experience for us to say, let's get more intentional with our money.
Mhm.
Let's get more focused on doing the right things. And so we decided to really kind of track our money a little more effectively, and it really made a big difference. And so I I don't know how many people I've met with over the years, but I mean, one of the biggest things is that they have all these expenses that are here and there, a couple dollars here and there. And when you really dial in what you're spending money on and how to really free up cash flow, because when I meet with a lot of people, they'd say, Paris, I don't have any money. I have no money to invest. I don't have any money to really do anything with. And I said, well, let's see about that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so as we go through the process, I found hundreds of dollars a month, like thousands, even in some cases, where they're
Jeez.
like, I didn't know I was spending all this money in the wrong places.
What do you think is the number one, culprit of disappearing money? Is it, like, YouTube subscriptions? Is it
It's
where do people
definitely
find money?
subscriptions is a big deal. There's a big, subscriptions that you're not using. But I think one of the biggest money sinks, if you will, is the conveniences. Like, oh, I was hungry, so I just bought something really quickly. Or I was at the grocery store and I bought an extra snack or something like that. So those really add up quickly. There's some bigger things, like a lot of people. I mean, I might ruffle some feathers, but
Ruffle away.
there's some people that own houses they shouldn't own and
Mhm.
own cars they shouldn't own.
Mhm.
And so those are some things that I get tough. I lost my cars. I turned them in and changed them out for less expensive cars when I needed to. And so I think that one of the biggest things is just really getting down to the finding out where your money's going and why. And if it brings you value, continue to do it. But if it's not bringing you value, then it's time to trim it up and stop doing it.
Well, I was listening to, I think it was a YouTube clip, from a guy that I have listened to here and there. His name is Jim Do. He's big in taxes right now.
Mhm.
And, he talked about this very thing. He brings up the proverbial Starbucks,
Mhm.
run, because you
Mhm.
go to Starbucks and you're spending 7, $8
Yeah,
for
easy.
a cup of coffee, right? You make that same cup of coffee home, it's 50 cents to a dollar,
Mhm.
right? And he said there's this we've vilified this cup of coffee,
Mhm.
right? Proverbially, and it can represent a lot of different things. But we villainized it because if you just stopped going to Starbucks and you started doing this instead, you could save a lot of money. And that's true
Mhm.
in a lot of cases. But he breaks it down and says, okay, but what is this $8 buying you? And should it buy you that? If it's something where you're like, okay, I'm being very intentional with my money. I've budgeted for this $8. I like to go because not only does it buy me a cup of coffee, it buys me a few minutes to myself.
Mm.
And it's maybe a reward I've set up for getting ready for a long day at work or after a hard day at work or whatever. If you're buying more than just a cup of coffee and it justifies the expense,
Go for it.
what's wrong with that?
Nothing.
Right?
Nothing.
But if you are unintentional
Mm.
and it's disappearing and you are seeing this sieve, this colander thing that you do in a YouTube video, like
Yeah.
this, it's leaking and you don't know it, that's a problem.
Yeah. Too many people have holes. What like you mentioned in that YouTube video I did, where I had the analogy of your bank account has holes in it, and what are
That's a
those holes?
scary thing to think about because we're
Yeah.
the one that put the holes there.
Yeah, we are. I think that if you get value out of a Starbucks coffee and it's not taking away from your goals and your dreams and your real financial, what you've your I think it's Ramit Sethi. I think that's how he pronounces it.
That
He
sounds
wrote a book. He
familiar.
wrote a book called "I'll Teach You to Be Rich." He talks about, setting up your vision of what does it mean to have a rich life for you. What does that
Mm,
mean for you? And he talks about having things that are more than willing to spend money on, things that bring you value, joy, happiness, whatever, and then the things that don't, really cutting back. So he's like, spend absorbently, or overspend, or just enjoy the things that bring you value and joy in life, and then mercilessly cut back on the things
mm.
that don't, that are in your life, that maybe you don't like. Why am I spending money doing this every month? Or what is this subscription? I don't even watch the show. I don't even go to the gym or whatever it is. Mercilessly cut back on those things so that you can have the money to be able to live the things that are valuable. And everybody's different. So when I sit down with a family, I don't personally go to Starbucks, but if that person I'm sitting across from brings joy to go there and have all those things that you mentioned about the time to themselves, the atmosphere, the environment, the good taste of enjoying the coffee or whatever, I'll tell them, look, let's budget that. Let's just put that into
Let's
your
plan
spending
for
plan.
that.
Yeah, put it into
Yeah.
your plan. If you're planning for it, absolutely, 100%. One of the things that I just don't a couple things I say is, don't spend tomorrow's money today,
Hmm.
and don't buy things from credit when if you can buy things from savings. Begin to buy things from savings. So save up first, then buy things. There's
Hmm.
that old funny Saturday Night Live joke, right? I
I
don't know if
love
you ever saw that
SNL.
one. So if I have money,
Oh, it's
I can
Steve
buy it.
Martin.
Yeah, yeah. So
That's
if I
my
don't have
favorite
money,
one.
that means I can't buy it?
But wait, what if
Yeah.
I get the money tomorrow?
You know what I mean? That's so true, and it's such a good play on how most of people do their and run their money.
Yeah.
Is they just everybody knows the math is simple. If you have a dollar and something costs $2, you shouldn't buy it.
Hmm.
But we do anyways because we have this credit card that says, "Oh, I do have $2 that I can put it on." And that's spending tomorrow's money today. And that can be very dangerous very quickly.
Yeah. And one of the things when I was a kid, I remember my mom talking to me, and my parents have their own money history, just like everyone's sets of
Mhm.
parents do. And I think every parent can say, I want my kids to be more financially successful than I am. Right. I think teaching that skill is one of the ways to set a positive baseline for your family. And I remember my mom, she told me not to get a credit card when I was a kid. And in my mind, when I'm like 8, 9 years old, I then make credit cards an enemy. Right? And I think that's overdoing it. I've come to learn that that's overdoing it because, gosh, having credit cards when we needed them in case of emergency was a lifesaver
Yeah.
for us, and we sometimes, I lived in a position where I would not have been in a house if I wasn't able to borrow money, right? I've also borrowed money when there's a positive ROI. But when we get into this consumer debt where I buy things that don't pay me back,
Mhm.
that's the problem.
Yep.
So when we're looking at 2025, I think a lot of people, us included, we look at our financial health for what we did last year and what we hope to do this year. And I'm sure you work with a lot of members and clients on your end that are using this particular time of year to reevaluate money. What are the biggest mistakes that you see when people don't reach their goals for the year before?
So I would say that I think awareness and accountability are some of the bigger things. Like, we all have a goal to get out of debt, stay out of debt. But if we don't have somebody to help us keep accountable or stay accountable, then, like, a couple of people that I've just chatted with recently, they were telling me about how they're in this cycle of debt. They'll get in debt, They'll realize that they shouldn't be in it. They'll get out of debt, and then they'll get right back into debt,
Sounds like a weight loss journey.
right? And so that's something that happens every New Year, New Year's resolution. Let's get out of debt. Let's get our money right. And by the end of the year, they're back into debt again because they didn't keep that consistency. They didn't have the accountability, and they didn't have the whatever you might call it to really stay the course. That's hard because I in 2008 during the economic downturn that most people experience, I lost pretty much everything. I mean, I almost could write a country music song about my experience during that time of my life.
Lost my
Uh,
dog, lost my house, lost my car.
right? I lost everything. The good thing is that I realized what was most important in life. I kept my wife and my family, and we were strong. And that was really awesome to really realize. Sometimes I think God puts us through experiences like that so that we can learn moving forward and be stronger moving forward. And those that learn the lesson don't have to repeat it usually. If you don't learn the lesson, that's one of my things is like when God gives you a lesson, learn it quick because then you get out of it and you don't have to repeat it. And
Mhm.
so I haven't been in credit card debt. I haven't carried credit card debt in 15 years.
Wow.
If I put it on a credit card, I pay it off every month. And that's where I feel like most everybody should be. And it's just you have to make the mental it really is a mental shift and then it's putting that into practice. And it's just not willing to go into debt, credit card consumer debt ever again. Just not doesn't make any sense.
So what happens when couples don't see eye to eye on that?
Well, that's a hard place because you got to love each other. You want to maintain that relationship. In most cases, my goal is to help couples stay together. One of the biggest things that they say in divorce court is that money was one of the biggest concerns for divorces. And I think that the stress around money to me is one of the biggest causes of disease. It's one of the biggest causes of divorce. I want to help eliminate that. I just there's so many ways that you can manage money more effectively to get to the point where you can do that. And it really comes down to communication. Communication is key.
Always comes back to that every
Yeah,
time.
one spouse might have a goal and they might have a way of doing things or a thought about doing something and they don't communicate, not just communication, but the way you communicate, the words that you use.
I think the packaging is important on that.
Yes. It's coming from a position of perhaps you're lecturing them. Yes, you are communicating, but you're communicating from a lecturer's standpoint, rather than, hey, let's do this together. We're in this together. This is you and me against the world. It's not me against you. It's not you against me. It's us against our money. It's us against our financial dreams, goals. Let's get on the same page with our dreams, what we want to accomplish,
Mhm.
and then let's figure out how to do that on a day-to-day basis.
I think that goes for parenting too, to be honest.
100%.
You know, it's you and me against whatever the enemy is outside the wire, in other words, right? The challenge is outside. We are unified. The challenge is outside. And you're right. There's marriages and even lives that can be saved when people get money right.
Yeah.
You know, it hurts my heart and it hurts my stomach to think about the people that are no longer here because of something by comparison so small. Money's a big thing, but it's also a very small part of it. Once you get all your money right and to have the mission to save marriages, that's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I'm passionate about it actually. It just makes me there's one to me, there's two big things about money. One is making it, and a lot of people right now are promoting make more money.
Mhm.
And that's great. I think people need to make more money, quite frankly. We just all need to make more money.
Can solve a lot of problems that way.
However, I've seen a lot of people that will make a ton of money and then they just go and spend it.
Mhm.
And so what did you do? You took your income and you have nothing to show for it. You're still paycheck to paycheck. You're just at a bigger level. And so I want to help people turn their income into wealth. I want to help people take the money that they are making and manage it effectively so that they can build wealth. And wealth, there's a real kind of a fun, there's different ideas about rich and wealth. Rich is loud and wealth is quiet. I like
Oh,
that.
interesting. Okay.
To me, there's a lot of the social media people, the influencers.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a guy. In fact, we all probably get the spam messages from time to time, and I got a spam message. This guy was like, "Hey, look how much money I made last month," and I said, "Great. How much of it did you keep?" Silence. Like it was a six-figure month. If he was telling the truth,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was a six-figure month, and that's most people don't make that in a year, let
Yeah.
alone a month. And I said, "So how much of it did you keep?" Are you turning that into wealth? Are you investing that? Are you putting it aside? Are you having do you have an emergency fund? Do you have savings
And you
for
got
things?
crickets back.
I got crickets back. And he's like, "Well, you should talk to my coach about what to
Oh,
do
that's
to
just a
make more
sales
money."
pitch.
Yeah, totally. And I was
And
like,
you and I have been in sales, and
long
there's
enough.
nothing wrong with gathering leads. There's nothing wrong with
Yeah,
doing that. But I mean, there's this is disingenuine part of it that he's presenting to you.
exactly.
Like,
And so we get this whole thing on social media, make more money, make more money, make more money. And we see all these people with the Lambos and the guys out there saying, buy my product and you get the bikinis and the yachts and the Lambos and everything else. And I've actually there's now we have school groups.
mm,
One of the school groups that I was in, the guy was like, look, I'm going to be real. I was one of those guys and I made a ton of money. But in order to keep up the facade, I had to spend almost all of it. I have really
a
got
nightmare.
nothing to show.
And this is the line you keep going back to.
Yeah,
I'm working really hard. I'm making decent money. I have nothing to show for it.
yeah, that's ridiculous.
But at the same time, they're like, I have a Lambo, I have the bikinis, I have the yacht. And now they're still saying that doesn't count.
This guy did. This guy told me, he says, "Look, I realized that was still on the treadmill. It was still on the rat race. I was still on the proverbial hamster wheel.
Hmm.
I don't want to be that anymore." And that's turning income into wealth. To get to the point where you can say, "I don't." There's another funny thing that's too that when you go to the restaurant, which side of the menu do you look at, right? First, do you look at what you're getting or how much does it cost first?
Hmm.
I don't I mean, I budget for my eating out expenses,
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
I have money that's guilt-free, shame-free, so I can spend. When I go out to eat, I eat.
Bless you.
I love it. I don't even worry about how much it costs necessarily.
Yeah, yeah.
And so there's
Because you
just
planned for it.
because I plan for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you turn income into wealth and you have money to fall back on, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you're going to have an emergency. It's a matter of when you're going to have a job loss. It's a matter of when you're going to have a health concern. It's going to maybe potentially ruin 64%, something like that, of bankruptcies are because of medical.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so, how many of us have the money set aside for those types of things? How many of us have HSAs or medical expense funds that are available already set up? And so, those are the kinds of things that I want to help people be prepared for. And that kind of leads into why I'm a prepper, myself in terms of just life in general. But as a financial person, there's just absolutely wisdom in being financially prepared for whatever life will throw at you. When when in the invariable events of life come, if you're prepared, they'll still come. They're still frustrating. They're still going to suck. And you should, and as the Marines say, embrace the suck, right?
Hmm.
But when you have the resources to deal with it, it lessens the impact.
That's the Wolf of Wall Street right there.
Yeah.
I'd rather drive up to my problems with a limousine than not being able to afford the car I'm in,
Yeah.
right? If I'm gonna approach problems and we're gonna have them, I'd rather hit it with 100 grand
Yeah.
than nothing,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And you bring in a really spiritual aspect to this. When we really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, where's the tie-in for you? What's your foundation for the spirituality and wealth? Because I don't know about you, but I have seen personally people in my bloodline, I've seen people in my communities and in my social groups and definitely in my religious groups. There's this weird disassociation with
Mhm.
wealth, and we are taught that we are entitled to everything that God has provided, and yet there's like this if you're wealthy, you're somehow a bad person
Mm.
kind of a thing, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Sure. For sure. What's interesting is that if you read the scriptures, you'll find that almost all the big patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they were wealthy. They had a lot of flocks, herds. At the time, that was wealth,
That was wealth, right?
And so and they had gold and silver too. I mean, Abraham had an army, he had wealth. There was, in fact, the Pharaoh of Egypt was jealous of Abraham's wealth. So to think about Abraham, he's the main guy that all the Jews looked to in the
Yeah, yeah.
scriptures. The history of the whole house of Israel comes from, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Those
Yep.
the fathers, of the founders, really, of the Hebrew and the Jewish. Well, it's more of the Hebrew house of Israel, anyways.
Even Christianity looks to Abraham.
Yeah, and so the point is, and that's where obviously the New Testament is more of the life of Christ, and he even talks about. Think about this for a minute. Let's say you're 30 years old, and you say, you know what, I want to take 3 years off and preach. how much money do you have to have saved up? How much wealth do you have to have? How much resources? How many? I mean, he's
Because you still have to eat.
of
You still
course
have to
he's
live
of
somewhere.
course Jesus Christ can touch the bread and turn to
I know.
he
Let me
can
just,
make stuff
I
come
just
out of
put coins in fish's mouths.
right. He can do miraculous things, but he also showed an example, in my opinion, of being in a place where you could take time off if you needed to, and that's powerful. I there was a time in my career. I'm an elder in my church, and at the time, I was actually in charge of the men over our church, and in the congregation that I was in, I was over the men and all of their families. And there was a funny time where I had the joke. Everybody's like, "Ask Paris to serve. If you need anything during the day, ask Paris because he doesn't work." That's because I built a passive income. I built a business where I have a passive income, so
Yeah.
I have time freedom.
Yeah.
And rich people buy things that bring them more time.
Yep.
And poor people and broke people buy things that add stuff or take away their time.
Hmm.
They trade their time for money.
Hmm.
And so I
And that's not a judgment, by the way. It's just a measuring stick.
yeah, oh, yeah, that's just how it works. And
Yeah.
so if you want to become more wealthy and more and richer in your life, do things that will bring you more time and give you time back. And so I took a week actually because there was a family that was in need and they needed a place to live, they needed to be moved. I actually was able to for most of that week I was guiding and directing, helping them, getting everything going together. And even the leader of our congregation, we call Bishop, he was like, Paris, I couldn't do this without you because
Wow.
your availability was something that was powerful. And to me, that's powerful because God wants us to be available. If you want to serve God
I
and be
love the
God,
way you put that.
God wants us to be available. He needs us to be available in many ways. And if we are available, then we can serve more effectively. If we're not available because we're stuck in a 9 to 5 or we're and not so I don't mind somebody having a job, a corporate job, because
No, no, there's nothing wrong with that.
I'm an entrepreneur
Yeah.
because I just can't be employed. Like I'm sorry, I'm a
You're
cat. I'm
unemployable.
like a cat, right?
Yeah.
But there are people that are entrepreneurs
Hmm.
that are great in that. My thing is have enough wealth and resources that if you needed to take a day off or a time off, you're not going to get fired or you're not going to be worried about, oh no, if I take this time off,
And they get
I'm not
groceries.
going to make the money to be able to pay the debt on the credit card or on the grocery or other things. So
Yeah. Yeah.
just having the resources and the wealth to be able to say that, whether you do that in a business that you own or whether you do it in a corporate position, have wealth, have reserves, have emergency funds, have cash reserves, have be where you need to be financially, and that's a wise steward. And then you can be available when God needs you to be available to do things. And there's so much. One of the things as I read the scriptures that as the people who follow Christ are righteous and they're doing what they're supposed to do, He blesses them with abundance. Then there's this weird pride cycle, and I believe in the enemy. The enemy is real,
Hmm.
as Christ is real, so too for me is the enemy.
Hmm.
And as soon as you get abundance, what do? Oh, we're good. We think we're smart because we have abundance, us, and we forget God, forget
I've committed
where the
that sin.
blessings come from. And so, in that, God says, like I shared with you earlier, He gives us those lessons. And I was from about 2001. I started my business in 2001 until about 2008 when the economic downturn hit. I was one of those guys that said, I'm going to be rich. I paid tithing. And so I'm like, man, God's going to want 10% of what I'm making. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that was my mentality. Oh, I'm going to make so much money. God's going to want 10% of this. Oh, for sure. And so he's going to bless me so I can give him 10% more. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden it came crashing down and I just lost everything. And I was in a very humble place. And God was like, look, I don't need your money. I need your heart.
Mm.
I need your mind. And I need you to be able to give me that and then teach others to do the same thing. And I rebuilt my whole financial aspect, my whole way I manage my money different after and the way I teach people. In fact, I took a pretty long break and built anyways, that was one of my big stories that I'm still working on being able to tell.
With that, I can see the emotion in that story.
Yeah,
What changed?
I had one of the most profound spiritual experiences in my life. I would not, I would not trade the experience, but I would not recommend losing anything. You know what I mean?
If you can learn cheaper, in other words, do that.
Yeah. Learn from other people rather than yourself. And so it was just one of those experiences where I realized what was important, what really mattered. It was eternal things. It was things that lasted my family, building wealth so that I could give and have and be available.
That phrase is going to live rent free in my head. That true wealth is availability.
Yeah.
There's a 4-letter word that gets thrown around all the time, starts with a B. And there's, I have chosen to be offended by this word, busy.
Okay.
When people call me busy, and you have put it so eloquently, that tells me I'm not available. And if I'm not available, I'm not wealthy.
Yeah.
And if I'm not available, I'm also not doing what God wants me to be doing. So when people call me busy, when I get messages that like, I know you're busy, I'm like, what am I doing? It's not anger at them.
Mhm.
It's what am I doing that's emitting lack of availability? What am I doing that's emitting busy? Because that anytime I hear that word, that's a hard check myself.
Yeah.
Because if I'm unavailable, first of all, am I available for the things that I want to be available for? There's some people that I don't care if you think I'm busy
Yeah.
because you're just a digital leech or whatever. But if there's friends that call me and I disrespect the time because I can't call them back because of this busyness, that's a slap in the face for me.
Good insight.
This busyness. So with where you're going with this, with your serving families, and do you bring in a religious, spiritual aspect, irregardless of who you work with? Because I imagine that you attract people
Yeah.
that
So
have that element.
thanks for asking. If somebody is a Christian or a member of my particular congregation or faith, I will definitely ask if it's okay if I bring that aspect into it because I think that really brings it home. However, there's a big movement right now in Stoicism. I don't know if you've heard of that. And
Yeah,
Stoicism,
Richard just bought a book. Is it Machiavelli that you bought? Or The Stoic Man or something?
No, I bought a physical copy of Marcus Aurelius
yeah,
Meditations.
excellent.
Yeah,
That's an
yeah.
excellent book. So Stoicism, in my opinion, has a very strong Christian relation. Like if you read the Bible and you read Stoicism's philosophy, the actual philosophy of Stoicism, you realize that I believe. Now, this is my personal belief. I have no way to verify this. Maybe I do. I just haven't found it yet. But I personally believe when Paul went to Greece to convert the people there, that most of the Christians that converted were Stoics.
Mm.
That's my personal belief because the Stoic philosophy follows so closely with the Christian belief and system and Christ's teachings that I'm like, there's. I'm sure that there were several people in Greece that when they converted to Christianity, they were the Stoics.
So define Stoicism as you
So
understand it.
Stoicism is the ability to realize that you have number one. I'm still working on my full understanding of Stoicism, but it's a philosophy of um, recognizing that you have the power to do the things that are available to you. You don't life happens, it's okay. You don't have to be stressed out about it. You can realize that life's going to have struggles, there's going to be problems, and you can rise to those problems, you can accomplish and you can overcome them. And one of the cool things about stoicism is that there's this idea that one of the stoics says that God, and there's a belief in God in the stoicism philosophy, that God has given us all the resources that we need. It's up to us to figure out how to use them to move forward and to progress, to be.
That just makes it sound like a game.
We have everything that we need. We just have to take the time to do it. My dad is pretty insightful, and he said that every one of us will choose the most effective path in our life. The problem is that we don't always have all the information to make the choice that is the most effective. So we
Mhm.
choose the most effective based on the information we have.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's why it's important to fill your mind with as much good information as possible, because then that opens up the possibilities of where you can choose the most effective and efficient course for your life to accomplish the goals and dreams that you have.
Well, and that leads me back to this conversation that this Instagram message or whatever it was that you got, right? Like, look at how much made and blah blah blah. I feel I've come to know that it takes a huge level of discernment, and that's part of the tuition that we pay often is the tuition to learn the lesson of discernment and saying, is this information helpful for me or is it not? And we've even talked about this in terms of like your branding and your labeling and so forth, is the term financial coach has been bastardized
Mm,
and made into investment salesman, right?
exactly. Yeah,
Like,
for real.
and you're not a financial coach. You're an investment salesman
Yeah.
or a scam artist at worst.
Yeah.
The difference in discernment between I'm going to coach you with your finances. Let's take a holistic picture of what you have with zero agenda on my end because I don't know what's best for you. You're going to tell me what you feel like is best for you versus I'm here to figure out where your money is so I can take it and deploy it into something you may or may not need.
And that brings back, I think that brings full circle to your question earlier about the spiritual aspect of money. And it really comes down to your behaviors and your beliefs and your mindset around money. You, all of us, the math is easy. The how to, all the strat, you can ask Chat GPT to make you a budget, for goodness sakes. I mean,
Yeah.
today, all of that is super easy. But the emotions that you have, beliefs that you have, you can't ask ChatGPT to help you understand, like when you were at the dinner table as a little girl and your mom and dad were fighting about money, or a little boy, and your mom and dad are fighting about money. You can't. That changes you. You now have a different reality or a different belief around money when you
Yeah.
come into your adulthood. When you hashtag or start adulting,
Yeah,
now
right?
you're like, wait a minute, my mom and dad fought. Like you said earlier, my mom said that credit cards were evil. Well, are they? They can be if you use them incorrectly, and that's true with anything.
Sure.
If you do
Yeah.
things wrong, it is going to have a negative thing. But if you use it correctly, then it can have a positive effect on your life. And those beliefs, I think, is what really changes the difference between somebody who's just going to sell you a stock or mutual fund or a life insurance product, and then or an actual coach who's going to help you, guide you, direct you, help you change your belief system, help you get to the point where you like, hey, I understand why I do the things that I do. Now, once you know where you are, once you're aware of why you're doing things, you're at a starting point. Now now you know what to change
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
order to move forward effectively with your money. And so there's actually a huge movement in financial planning that's called behavioral finance. And
Interesting.
it's now all, if you want to be a certified financial planner or you want to be any kind of a real holistic planner, they now require behavioral finance courses,
No
helping people
kidding.
understand how their beliefs and behaviors around money affect how they actually spend and invest and the things they do with their money. Absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy.
I thought a lot about that when I was training sales team members on the
Mhm.
sales floor I was in. I would bring in this commercial. It was by Chanel. And this commercial, I looked up, was it 3 million or 33 million something to produce? It's some exorbitant amount of money at this point, you know. And it's the commercial where it's got the lady from Inception and the wife from Inception and some dude that's a very glamorous commercial. They're like in Paris and then they're in glitter dancing on the moon with this gold stardust and then they do this interpretive dance and there's this music and all of these things. And I show that commercial expressly because the commercial wants you to purchase a bottle of perfume
Mhm.
at the end of the day. That's what they're
Yeah,
hoping to do. But you're not buying the bottle of perfume. Which
buying the whole
you're
experience.
buying romance, you're
Uh-huh.
buying sensuality, you're buying the perception of luxury and gold, glitter, and dust. And
Yes.
this is this behavioral finance, at least in my interpretation of
Sure.
what you're talking about, is we're not buying the Lambos. We're not buying the big house. We're buying the approval of people we may not even know.
Or, yeah. Yeah. Keeping up with the Joneses is a real thing.
It is.
It's very real, especially if you were a child growing up and you couldn't have certain things because you don't have the money for it. And now you're like, well, I'm old. I have my own money. Darn it. I'm not going to restrict myself. I'm going to go buy it. That's why people get into trouble is because of certain behaviors that they learned as a child, watching these financial behaviors modeled by their parents or their grandparents or their friends or their friends' parents. And it really boils down to why are you doing that? Why do you d I love what you do in a lot of your trainings. You're like, "But why?" You call it your
My
2-year-old,
inner 2-year-old.
my inner 2-year-old.
Why? Why?
"Why? Why are you doing that? Why? Why? Why?" And when we get down to why we do that, sometimes we're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm buying this to impress people that I don't care about, that I don't know about, that don't care about me, and, like, is it really bringing me value? If it is, great. If it's not, then get rid of it. Get it out of your life." And that takes a lot of inner fortitude and inner strength to be able to do that. And I've actually there's there's a whole psychology in sales, and you know this as well as anybody because you're a sales trainer, that there's I actually have read a book. There's a great book called by Dr. Donald Moyne called the Sales Hypnosis, the ability to hypnotize people. And that is not like they'll watch and
Sure.
look into my eyes and 10, 9, 8,
Ooh.
you're going to be a cow after this or whatever. It's not that kind of hypnosis, although that's part of it.
It's not far off.
It's more of speaking to the subconscious mind and building a rapport with the subconscious mind such that you don't even know it's happening. And before you know it, you're handing your money over to this person. And you're like, "Wait a minute, that's why buyer's remorse is a real thing." Because these
Mm.
salesmen are so well trained. And it's not just the salesperson that might be across at your front door. It's the commercials.
Mhm.
It's the advertising.
Oh, I watch it happen to my kids.
When you walk into a grocery store, a department store, or any kind of store, they have things placed in the way they have them placed. because of human behavior, because of human psychology. They've studied it. They know exactly where to put on what shelf to put the product because they
Mhm.
know that you're going to more likely your eye level, you're going to grab it, you're going to buy it, whether you need it or not.
Mhm. Down to the colors. If you ever go
Oh,
down the
yeah.
cereal aisle, look how yellow it is.
Oh, really?
Yeah, go down the cereal aisle, it's mostly yellow. At restaurants, you won't see blue light, you'll see warm light, you'll see yellow, orange, and red lights, and it's the same thing.
It's all psychology.
We're being influenced, and in some cases manipulated
Yeah.
into making the choices that we do.
Mhm.
That's why specific brands use specific colors, and we can go on all about the subconscious manipulation. But I think to your point, awareness of that,
Mhm.
it counteracts the influence.
Yeah.
Is this awareness and asking what I really want. When we talk about, I'm going to buy things to impress people I don't even know or don't even like, I think oftentimes I hear that and I'm like, no, that's not what I'm doing. When I buy something that I don't actually need, I'm trying to impress myself, my younger version of myself, this younger version that says, I couldn't afford this as a kid
Mhm.
and I can now, or at least I'm perceiving that I can now. So I'm going to buy it to prove something to myself. And there I am left with a expensive things sitting in my closet, and this is where the remorse comes in.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could and I did, but now what?
Yeah.
When we see
That's
people
real.
on all the time on social media, there's like, I have this Lambo and it's great. I'm not trying to villainize Lambos.
Yeah.
If that
No.
is a manifestation of your creativity and your art, and that's something that is beautiful, great, go for it. And I think of temples the same way. And I've thought a lot about this because I grew up in a environment we were always looking for the next dollar. It was worse than paycheck to paycheck, right?
Wow.
And then we go to these temples, at least in the faith that we're a part of, and in many other faiths, where you go to these ornamentally, exorbitantly expensive buildings,
Mhm.
and there's like real crystal chandeliers and these, multiple $1,000, hundred like wood veneered things in the hallways. And I'm like, okay, so there's something to be said about investing in the beauty around you,
Mhm.
right? There's something to be said about investing in your environment and investing in yourself. And I'm forced to ask, what is the why behind that? And when do I justify investing in my surroundings?
I think your environment has a lot to do with how it elevates your mind and your thought process. And if you live in clutter, live in squalor, your mindset is going to be in that realm. If you live in pristine conditions, and it doesn't have to necessarily be marble flooring, chandeliers that
No.
are crystal, but clean. Cleanliness is next to godliness.
Hmm.
And so there's some reality to that. I remember an old story about some guy who drove up it was a sports car, probably a Lamborghini, and
Sorry, Lambo.
right,
Throwing
and
you under the bus hard.
some other person who was a little bit different mindset said, "Hey, if you would have taken that money that you spent on that Lamborghini and given it to the poor, you would have done a lot better job." And the guy says, it's interesting that you say that because when I bought this Lamborghini, I probably employed hundreds of families that had to
Hmm.
work to put this tires, the families that worked to put the engine together, the families that designed and crafted the outside of the vehicle,
Hmm.
and that gave me an insight that I hadn't. I was from the same thought process, like, why are you so exorbitant? Like you're wasting money with these big things, and I realized, actually, it's putting there's a difference between being given something and then you have an entitlement mentality versus you having to work for it and the respect
Hmm.
that you have. Like if somebody gave me $100,000, I would be grateful, of course.
Of course.
But if they gave me a job where I knew I could earn the $100,000, I would respect that $100,000 way more because I earned it.
Well, so people that win the lottery are worse off in 2 years.
Oh, absolutely. Like statistically, if you
Yeah.
win the lottery, you're like
That's
one
one of
of
the worst things that can
that's one
happen
of
to you
one
financially.
reason not to play the lottery is because it will wreck you if you
Yeah.
don't. And it literally boils down to there's a skill set for making money and a skill set for managing and keeping it. And those are two separate skill sets. If somebody is really good at making money, you need to get with somebody that is really good at managing it. If you're not very good at making money, and you're good at managing it, find somebody that knows how to make it really well
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
partner with those people in life. And so you got to learn how to manage it and make it. And once you learn to live within your means, then you should grow your means
Hmm.
so that you can provide be more abundant. I mean, one of the things that really moves me and what I want to make more money for is is a huge there's all these TikToks and Instagrams where there's people that go out to homeless places and they give money or they'll give a gift of something. Those are viral in a lot of cases.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
because I think it's human nature for us to want to give.
It's one of the Tony Robbins 6 pillars is contribution.
We all want to be philanthropic. We all want
Yeah.
to contribute to the world. It's unfortunate because with that desire, we don't have the resources. We would just, for example, I sat down with a lady and she's not very good at managing her money. She spends way more than she makes. And I helped her say, listen, if you had all the money in the world, if money wasn't an option, what would you do? She said, I would probably start a foundation for abused women and children. I said, so the next time you go to buy something at the store, that
Ooh.
dollar that you're going to spend could go to helping you start that foundation, or it could go to buying that thing you're going to buy right then. So you need to stop and think, is this dollar that I'm spending going to help toward my goal, my dream, my vision? Or is it going to be buying something that I'm going to eat right now and it's going to bring me joy for 5 minutes and then
Yeah.
it's over. So that's something that I help my clients with. I say, look, what are your goals and dreams? What do you want to accomplish? And then when you go to spend money, take a minute because we have that ability as human beings. We're the only creatures on this earth that have the ability to choose our response. We're response able. We're
Oh, I like the way
responsible.
you broke that down.
So you're able to choose your response. So when you have a dollar and you go to spend it, you can choose, wait a minute, is this going to bring me value or is this going to take value from my life? And am I spending tomorrow's money today?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I spending money on things that will not help me move me towards my goals, my dreams? And there's money for everything. There could be money for both. Like there are some things we need to enjoy the now.
Yeah.
We can't live in the future all the time. We can't live in the past. We need to live in the now, but we need to plan for the future. I think Jordan Peterson says it in
I
a
love
very,
that guy.
he says it in a really real way. He says we need to live now, but we're also on this continuum because we will, if God willing, we'll be alive in 10 years too.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to think about your today and your 10-year self.
Mm-hmm.
Like, your 10-year self is going to be grateful for what you're doing today. So make sure, or he's going to be regretful of what you did today.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure that your 10-year self, when looking back, says, I'm thankful that I did that for myself 10 years ago, 5 years ago, last year, or whatever. And so you've got to make choices today that will bring you value today, but also extrapolate that into your future self. And will you have value? Will you be grateful in 10 years or 5 years? Because we're going to be 5 years older anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Might as well be wealthy. Might as well have money. Might as well have resources. We'll have savings. We might as well be debt free. We might as well have a large net worth. You know what I mean? We might as well do it, right?
Yeah.
We might as well have good family relationships. We might as well have good marriages. We might as well have good relationships with our children. All that stuff. We're going to be 5 years older anyways. Why not be valuable in 5 years? More valuable than you are today. And so that's today. Make your choices based on what's going to bring you joy, some joy today, but also have your 5-year self from now grateful that you did that.
Not only 5 years, but 30 days, 1 year,
Yeah.
6 months. I do this on a really, really silly scale. I buy, it's a funny thing I spend money on, but I buy myself gifts in forms of, this is going to sound dumb, but I buy myself chapstick, a ton of it, and I leave it in places. And every time I need some and I find it somewhere else, I'm like, oh, thank you, past self.
Right?
I
That's
needed
cool.
that right now.
That's
Thank
funny.
you. And it's a small example, and it's everywhere in my house, but that's just a small representation of I stashed this cash away or I invested in this thing that's now paying me. I mean, we've been blessed to buy investment properties, and when those mature, we're going to say thank you, past self, for
Right.
spending that money on an investment property instead of a temporary thing.
Yep.
Thank you for feeding that future self. I want to talk about your 30-day challenge because I find it so valuable, and then I want to tack on something to it. And I'll do the tack on first, and I want to explain. You want to explain your 30-day challenge?
Sure.
I was thinking about you when I was on stage one time. I was like, I wonder if we could facilitate a process like right now. So I tested it out. I think I told you about this.
You did, yeah.
I had everyone pull out their phones, and I want you to do this too. Pull out your phone, and your iPhone will tell you which subscriptions you have. If you just log into your Apple ID, it'll tell you what Apple, through your general settings, it'll tell you what subscriptions you have.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the ones that you're not using and turn them off.
Mhm.
I did that in the room, and I had this lady, she's probably in her 70s, and she opened up her phone and she showed it to me. She's like, there's $100 a month in here that I'm not using. It was from the
Right.
30-day free trial or the 7-day free trial. There's
Uh-huh.
$25 here for this one, and there's a $10 here for this one. And she's like, I don't even use this video editor anymore. What even is this thing? Apple Music?
Exactly.
I don't use that. And she saved $100 a month like that.
Yeah.
Right there. Stopped
there.
up some of the holes that she didn't know she had punched in her bank account. So try that first and then tell us what the 30-day challenge is.
So the 30-day challenge is the over 20 years of working with. Well, actually, at the time I created the 30-day challenge, it was based on my wedding ring experience,
Yeah.
where the $20 here and there adding up to $900. And so I tried it on some clients. I said, "Listen, let's see how you." What's interesting too, my 30-day challenge. One of the first things that I have folks do is maximize their paychecks. And I shared this idea with a CPA who's a financial coach as well.
Mhm.
And I said, listen, as because I was in a group of financial coaches and we were all being trained by another guy to kind of grow our businesses and just, collaborate with each other. What are you doing? What are you doing? And working together. And so one on one, I met with this CPA lady and she's a coach. And I said, what do you do that's kind of a nuance that makes you kind of what's your, your thing
Yeah,
that
yeah.
defines you as the one thing that you can bring to the table? And I'll share with you one of the things that I usually do for folks that I've never even heard of other financial coaches doing. And I showed it to her, and she says, "Paris, as a CPA, I should have known about this. Like, I can't believe I didn't know about how to do this." And in that one process, on average, I've had people save 600, 700 a month, but on average, it's about 300 a month.
No
So
kidding.
what would you do right now with an extra $300 a month? How would that change your life? How would that change your financial outlook with an extra $300 right now? Then if you go on, that's the first step. The second step is to do what I call a 90-day look back. And this is cool because this is something that I was doing this with my clients, and I was watching some documentary. As a financial guy, I want to know what's out there. I want to know what other financial professionals are doing. So I read tons of books. In fact, this guy I mentioned earlier, he has a podcast called Money for Couples, and he brings couples on. He says that in all of my experience, 9 out of 10 couples who have money problems have never read a book on finance, ever.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, just last year I probably read 20 books.
Yeah.
Just last year.
Yeah.
And so I'm constantly reading, constantly filling my mind with ideas. And so I was watching this documentary. It was like on MSNBC Money or something like that, CBS Money or something like that. And they had this financial coach. It was a documentary helping people get out of money. It was on the news, anyways. And they did the exact same thing I had been doing, and I was like, validation. Thank you very much. So I'm not a crazy,
This actually
this
works.
actually, I didn't come up with this. I mean, I came up with it by myself, but it's something that's out there in the world, and that's kind of fun. So it's a 90-day look back. And what I do is take all your bank statements, credit card statements, anything that you spent money with, and look back over a 90-day time frame. And why 90 days is because 90 days gives you the ability to put it like each month. For example, this is January when we're recording this. So if you did this, it would be December, November, and October.
Mhm.
Now, December is kind of an unfair month because it's Christmas. But if you take each of those months and you put into like, how much did I pay for my mortgage, your rent? It should be the same. How much did I pay for food, eating out,
You get an average. Yeah.
groceries, and then every month put how much you spent in each category, fixed costs and variable costs, and then take an average over the whole 3 months. That gives you going forward what your spending habits are.
Mhm.
You can't change a habit unless you know what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And so my idea was, if you know what the last 3 months of your habits have been, now you can take a look at, okay, what habits do I need to change?
Mhm.
You choose. You choose. I'm not going to choose for. I can give you some advice on
Yeah,
where I
yeah.
think you ought to change in certain areas of your life, but based on your values and where you want to go moving forward, what do you want to change first? And then for the next 30 days, see how much money you can save.
I love that. And so
So,
one of the things when Richard and I were in money always has its flexes and expanses and its
mhm,
flexes. So one of our money flexes was like, okay, if we are experiencing a lower income flow, what is important to us and what do we want to keep? Date night was one of those things for us when we're like, we're always going to reserve funds for date night because that's what's important to us. We will cut funds in other entertainment areas and so forth, but we're like, this is why this is important to us.
yep. Every couple should do something like that, whether it's
Yeah.
date night or some other thing, whatever it is. You need to have your most important things that you're going to put money into, and then the things that you're going to be willing to cut back on that
Mhm.
aren't as important, so that you can fund those things.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, we still have to be responsible with the income we have and what income we do have, and we need to learn to live within that and beneath it and have a positive cash flow. At the end of the 30 days, my challenge is, how much positive cash flow did you free up? And tell me, and let's put it out there. Let's create a situation where you have positive cash flow that you can move forward to, and then with positive cash flow, you can get out of debt. You can build your savings account, start to invest in the future. whether you want to build a business or you want to start investing in the stock market or whether you want to invest in real estate, whatever you want to do, start building towards having some passive income in life.
Yeah, and some dispensable income that you can play with
Yep.
on that. Well, so this 30-day challenge, it's something that people, how do people find this?
So right now I have a free ebook, and you can go to parisclough.com/free book, and you can download the book. It's free, and it goes through my wedding ring experience. The first chapter or so is my story about kind of how I came to an awareness of it, and then the next couple of chapters are how to maximize your paycheck, and then how to really do the 90-day look back, and then how to track money going forward, because awareness brings change.
Mhm.
And it's amazing to me when I sit down with a lot of couples. I'll ask them, one of the first things, how much money do you make? I don't know. I think it's this. How do you not know how much money? Like,
Yeah,
to the,
that we should know
right?
that.
How much do you spend? I don't know. We just spend.
Well,
What?
there's your problem.
So if you track, and you don't have to be down to the penny, and you don't have to be Mr.
I used to be. I would be like, bananas are costing this much per pound, and I buy 4 pounds of bananas.
And so you can respect not having to do that anymore.
Oh, I am so grateful.
And
But that came out of learning the small habits. I had to learn the rules before I could expand.
So I actually lived on food stamps for
Yeah.
a while.
Yeah, you and me
because
both.
I had to put food back. When the bill came up, I said, "How about this? Take that back." And I got it to the point where I could do. So I know what you're talking about. Today I don't have to do that anymore. In fact,
Yeah.
today I can help the guy next to me and pay for his
Yeah.
if I need to, and that's beautiful. But the 30-day challenge is, if you actually do the things. See, I know there's a lot of people that write ebooks and give free material, and you're like, you read it and it's so high level and so macro level. You're like, how do I
It's
how
not
do I actually
actionable.
actionably do things? In my free book, I give you actionable steps. And then if you want to upgrade, there's a video that explains it. And that video course is worth upgrading to. Once you go through that process, if you want to have more, there's going to be an opportunity for you to get on a discovery call with me, and we can see about coaching. I have another program called my GPS, my financial GPS,
Mm-hmm.
and I call my game planning session, but it's also goes along with the analogy of GPS on your phone. If you want to go somewhere and you don't know how to get there, like when I drove here to this morning, I opened up my phone, I typed in your address, that was the destination,
Mm-hmm.
and then the next question it asked was, from where? So
Oh,
I
yeah.
needed to know
Where are you
where I
starting from?
was.
Yep.
So I put in from my home, and then it gave me the route, and then I clicked start to actually get turn by turn directions.
Mm-hmm.
And so most people have no idea where they want to go financially. I
Or
want to be
where they're
rich.
starting.
I want to be rich. What does that mean?
Yeah. How much does that? Is that how many dollars a month?
You're right.
Does that equal? You don't even
So
know.
find out where you want to go, and we've defined that in almost an address format. We define where you want to go. Then we look at where you are. What are your current income, your current expenses, your current debts, your current investments? What is your current risk? Also, risk aversion. You need to be managing your risk properly
Mm-hmm.
with different health insurance, life insurance, car insurance, home, all the different types of insurance. So we look at everything where you are today. And then after having defined where you want to go, we look at where you are today.
Mm-hmm.
And then we find a route to get there. And if you want to DIY the route, that's up to you. But if you want help along the road,
You
turn
can
by
walk,
turn
or you can
instructions,
drive, or you can take public
then
transit,
then
proverbially.
you can hire me as a coach to help you with those turn by turn directions. But it all begins with me. It all begins with your own awareness of where you are financially, and that free ebook is the best way to start. Gives you that clarity on, this is where I am. This is where I actually am with my income, with my expenses, with my spending habits,
Mm-hmm.
and these are the things that I want to do to change that, to give myself a positive cash flow. If you have financial goals and dreams, you cannot get there without a positive.
Yeah. And you can't get there if you don't know where that is
Yeah.
or where you're starting. We're going to put that in the show notes, by the way. So everyone that's listening, and if you're listening on Instagram or social media, I know we're broadcasting live, parisclough.com /
free book.
free book. So we'll put that in the show notes. But if you're listening online, just go and grab it right now. Even if you don't decide to move forward with coaching, you should at least know where you're at.
Yeah.
So you can make a game plan and do a little bit of DIY. My hope is that everyone listening takes you up on that and downloads that book, at least gets a barometer for where they're at, because 2025, I mean, we're in this time of year where we take a look back. It's this energy that's about us. We're like, okay, this is a milestone in time. I want to see where my results are at and get better ones. Anyone that says I don't do goals, you're just saying that because you didn't trust yourself with your goals that you
Yeah.
did last time. So set a goal and then break it down so you know where you're at and take steps to get there. And I'm so grateful, Paris, that you came on today. Thank
been
you for
fun.
being here.
Thanks
Thank
for
you for
having me.
blessing the lives that are on this podcast.
You're awesome. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
I'm excited to be in your world.
Same. Absolutely. Thank you, Aiden, for bringing us together.
Yes, my son. Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely. Friends, this is I don't know what episode we're on. I think we're on episode 82 of the Marianne Hickman Show, regardless of where we're at. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you check out Paris and all the resources he has, and we'll see you next time. And for those of you on Instagram, make sure that you're subscribed to Paris. Make sure you go follow him. Check out everything he's doing. He's got some really fun YouTube videos out. I love watching your stuff on YouTube.
I took a break from YouTube for a few months to kind of reevaluate what I'm going to do, but I'm moving forward. I've got a few ideas, some good ideas. I'll be
Good.
probably posting videos again starting next week.
Yes. Okay, go check him out. And no matter who is your financial coach, just make sure that you are mission driven, intentional with your money, intentional with your spending, because as Paris said, we're here to be people on this earth that do good things, and those good things require funding. And you deserve